Have you ever wondered why the most unforgettable women never tell you the truth about their power until it's far too late? It's not cruelty, it's not deceit, it's the nature of something older than language, older than culture, a quiet, unshakable law woven into the feminine soul. These women move like rivers under moonlight, calm on the surface, yet carrying ancient currents beneath. They understand, without needing to articulate it, that mystery is not a tactic. It's a survival instinct. It is the hidden temple in which their strength matures in silence. She will never confess the secrets that shape her until you're already a ghost in her story. And even then, she will not speak them plainly. You might catch them in the fragments. The way her laughter carries a note of mourning. The way her eyes no longer seek yours for confirmation. The way her absence tastes heavier than her presence ever did. Stoicism has taught her something the modern world keeps forgetting. That what is beyond your control belongs neither to your grasp nor your grief. The first secret is her allegiance to the dichotomy of control. She knows you mistake it for detachment. But it is discipline. When you raged, when you withdrew, when you demanded her softness on your schedule, she did not bend because she had already understood the limits of her influence. She cannot control your moods, your loyalty, or your love, and so she did not waste herself trying. In this, she is freer than you ever were. The chains you thought she wore were illusions, they were yours. But there is another layer you could not see, the one that made you both drawn to her and disturbed by her calm. She lives according to nature and reason, but not in the sterile, moralizing way you think of philosophers. For her, nature is not a forest walk or a list of virtues written in ink. It is the deep pulse of life's seasons moving through her body. She understands that attraction, like the tide, rises and recedes. She will not chase a wave as it retreats. She will simply turn her face toward the next horizon. You saw this as coldness. It was, in truth, harmony. What unsettled you most was how she embodied the virtues, wisdom, courage, temperance, justice, not as slogans, but as instincts. Wisdom, in the way she could see through your posturing without stripping you of your dignity. Courage, in her refusal to silence her boundaries even when you threatened to leave. Temperance, in her ability to hold back her desire to prove herself right. Justice, in the way she would rather lose you than betray herself. You wanted these qualities to bend for you. She knew better than to twist virtue into flattery. You never noticed how much she loved fate, amor fati, until you became the fate she accepted. When the first crack appeared, you expected her to fight the collapse. Instead, she welcomed it like the slow turning of seasons. To her, every ending is a teacher. Every departure, a purification. If you had listened, you might have heard the quiet gratitude in her voice when she realized your absence was simply the world making space for her next becoming. But you were too consumed with the insult of being let go. This is the shadow side of your fascination. You loved her detachment until it detached from you. You admired her self-possession until it no longer served your ego. You thought her silence was a game. It was, in fact, her shield. There is no harsher mirror than a woman who does not need your permission to exist. And when she withdraws that reflection, you are left with only your own unguarded face. She knows the art of memento mori, but she will never confess how much it governs her choices. Every day, she remembers that both your life and hers are brief, a breath, a flicker, a falling leaf. This awareness keeps her from clinging to moments already fading. You, meanwhile, treated time like an endless currency, certain she would always be there to spend. By the time you realized the account was empty, she was already elsewhere, living fully in the small eternity of the present. Even in her departure, she remains unmoved by the need to explain. She knows that explanation would only serve you, not her, to tell you the full extent of her discipline, her detachment, her alignment with nature and fate. That would be to hand you the map to her temple. And she has no desire for you to find your way back. Not because she hates you, but because she has learned that some doors must stay closed for the architecture to remain intact. You will remember her not for what she gave you, but for what she withheld, the graceful cruelty of a woman who understands that love, like freedom, cannot be forced into permanence. And in that absence, you will meet your own shadow. There comes a moment, always later than you expect, when the absence stops feeling like a wound and begins to feel like a mirror. At first, You think the echo is hers, the lingering trace of her voice in the corridors of your mind. But then you realize the echo belongs to you. She had simply stepped aside, and in the space she left behind, your own emptiness became audible. This is where her second secret hides. She understands the ego's hunger better than the ego understands itself. A Stoic woman, in her deepest alignment, does not inflate herself to compete with a man's pride. She studies it the way a cartographer studies the landscape, tracing the peaks and valleys, marking the choke points, learning where storms will always gather. She does not announce her knowledge. She lets you believe your defenses are still intact while quietly noting the cracks. This is not manipulation, it is self-preservation. What you mistook for passivity was a deep reading of your projections. Jung spoke of the anima, the inner feminine image a man projects onto the women he loves. She knows that in your eyes, she was never just herself. She was a mirror to your longing, a vessel for your unlived tenderness, a container for your disowned chaos. The more intensely you adored her, the more certain she became that it was not her you loved, but the vision you had built around her. And so she gave you just enough truth to keep you enthralled, while keeping the rest locked away. You saw her restraint as coldness because you have been taught that intimacy is measured by exposure. But she lives by temperance, not the compulsions of confession. She knows the more she reveals, the more she risks being consumed. Stoicism has taught her that self-control is not the denial of feeling but the art of protecting it from the wrong hands. You wanted her entire soul laid bare on the table. She knew her soul was not a banquet to be devoured, but a flame to be guarded from the wind. It is in this guardedness that her allure deepens. Men often confuse accessibility with affection, believing that if a woman loves them, she will pour herself out completely. But the Stoic woman understands what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." She chooses her thoughts, her exposures, her colors with precision. She would rather remain partially unread than be misread entirely. Her third secret is her refusal to rush what life has not yet ripened. You may have thought she hesitated because of doubt. In truth, she moved at the pace of nature itself, slow, deliberate, unbothered by the urgency that drives lesser bonds to burn out quickly. This patience is not just for love, it is for all things. She understands that the oak does not envy the reed, that the winter does not resent the spring. Everything arrives exactly when it must. And so, when you tried to pull her forward faster than she wished to go, she resisted, not out of stubbornness, but out of devotion to the rhythm that keeps her sovereign. This sovereignty unnerved you. It is rare in a world that rewards women for dependency. She required nothing from you that she could not provide for herself. She enjoyed your presence, yes, but she did not need it to validate her existence. This is the shadow side of attraction. We are often drawn to those who least require our approval. Yet we resent them for that very independence. Even in moments of tenderness, she seemed to hold something back. And she did, not as punishment, but because she knows the law of scarcity. That which is not given freely is valued more deeply. She will not be the one who texts you first when you withdraw in silence. She will not be the one who begs for answers when you grow distant. She will watch you leave with the same composure she watched you arrive. Because she knows that clinging to what is already leaving is the fastest way to lose oneself. In this, her connection to Amor Fati deepens. She does not love only the pleasant moments. She loves the whole of the story, the joy, the decline, the heartbreak, the liberation. To her, the ending is not a tragedy but an unveiling. Every departure forces her to confront herself anew, to clear the space for what aligns with her evolving self. She will not resist this process for the comfort of another's stability. You may believe she simply moved on, but that is too shallow a description. She did not move on, she integrated. She absorbed the lessons, examined her own shadows, and carried forward the virtues that made her stronger. She will not tell you this, because the truth would feel like a rebuke, while you replayed the past for validation. She rewrote her inner world for peace. By the time you realize what you lost, she will already be living the next chapter. And you will never know the details, not because she is hiding them from you, but because she has no impulse to prove her worth in your eyes anymore. There is a particular moment, subtle, almost invisible, when her gaze changes. It is not anger, nor contempt, nor even sadness. It is the moment she sees you clearly for the first time. Stripped of the illusions her heart once wove around you. That sight is irreversible. A Stoic woman, once awakened to the truth, cannot unsee it. She may still speak to you with kindness. She may still share a bed, a table, a silence, but something in her posture has shifted. She is no longer standing toward you, but beside herself. This is the fourth secret she will never confess. She leaves you long before her body walks away. Detachment, for her, is not an event but a season, a slow withdrawal of roots from soil that no longer nourishes. It is deliberate, quiet, without drama. You might mistake it for moodiness or distraction. You might think she is busy, tired, preoccupied. In truth, she is disentangling herself from the invisible cords that once bound her to you. Until the day comes when there is nothing left to cut. The reason she can do this without collapsing is because she has practiced memento mori not just in thought, but in love. She remembers, in every moment, that this relationship is mortal, as susceptible to change as flesh is to death. And because she has rehearsed the loss in her mind, she can meet it with composure when it arrives. This is not coldness. It is a deep reverence for the impermanence that shapes all human connection. To you, it feels like she has given up too easily. But from her view, it is the opposite. She has given fully until the moment it became clear that giving more would mean losing herself. And self-betrayal, in her code, is the greatest sin. Courage, to her, is not clinging to a sinking ship. It is stepping into the icy waters and trusting her own strength to swim to shore. In those final months, perhaps, you noticed a growing silence between you. Not the silence of resentment, but the silence of restraint. She no longer argued over small slights. She no longer tried to explain why certain words cut deeper than others. She no longer asked where you had been or why you were late. This silence was not surrender, it was sovereignty. She had chosen peace over persuasion. And when a woman stops trying to persuade you, she is already building a life where your approval no longer matters. Her fifth secret lies in her refusal to avenge herself through performance. Many women, upon losing a man's attention, rush to prove their desirability. Curated images, glittering nights out, the loud theater of moving on. The Stoic woman does none of this. She knows that true detachment is invisible. She lets the absence speak for itself. If you wonder about her, that is enough. She does not need to feed your curiosity. She knows hunger is most potent when left unsatisfied. And so, she turns her energy inward. Here is where her shadow work begins in earnest. Jung wrote that, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. She faces the parts of herself that once tolerated too little or gave too much. She examines the old patterns that led her into your arms, not to blame herself, but to claim responsibility for her own becoming. This is the part you will never witness. The private alchemy that turns heartbreak into a higher form of self-respect. When she emerges, it is not with fanfare, but with an unmistakable shift in presence. She laughs more easily, but fewer things amuse her. She moves with grace, but no longer hesitates to cut away what no longer aligns. She is softer in some ways, harder in others. The fire in her eyes is not the spark you remember, it is steadier now. Less likely to burn out for anyone who hasn't earned it. And yet, she will not tell you any of this. She knows that to explain her transformation would be to reopen a channel that has already been closed. She owes you nothing, not the details, not the progress, not the closure you think will help you sleep at night. Her life is her own again, and the less you know of it, the purer it remains. In time, you will realize that the most haunting thing about her is not what she said to you, but what she left unsaid. The untold stories, the unspoken lessons, the secrets that never needed to be revealed. They will linger, like a faint scent on an empty shirt, long after you've convinced yourself you've forgotten her. There is an irony here that would almost make her smile. If she were the kind to gloat, the more you try to forget her, the more she becomes unforgettable. You cannot erase her because she was never just a sequence of shared moments, she was an initiation. A threshold you crossed without knowing you would never cross back. She did not simply touch your life, she altered the architecture of your perception. And she did it without demanding credit. This is her sixth secret. Perhaps the most disquieting of them all. She knows that true influence leaves no fingerprints. You will never be able to point to the exact words or gestures that shifted you. Only that something in you feels different now. She has planted thoughts you did not know were seeds. And they have been growing in the dark without your consent. Stoic wisdom tells her not to seek ownership over this, to let the fruit ripen where it will, even if it is far from her sight. The root of this lies in her understanding of justice. Not the brittle justice of revenge, but the deeper justice of alignment. She believes that each person eventually meets themselves, that life delivers every soul the exact mirror it has been avoiding. If she was yours, she knows you will meet her again, not in flesh, but in the form of another woman, another conflict, another silence, and in that moment, you will remember her without summoning her. This, to her, is balance restored. In the quiet months after her departure, you might replay the last conversations, searching for hidden meanings. You might wonder if she wanted you to fight harder, to break her composure, to make her stay. But that is a fantasy born of the masculine instinct to conquer. She is not a fortress to be breached. She is a mountain that moves only with the tectonics of her own choosing. She does not respond to siege. She responds to seasons. And if your season has passed, she does not resurrect it for sentiment's sake. Her attraction was never blind. It was deliberate, a choice made with the full awareness that it could end. This is why she could give herself fully without losing herself in the giving. She understood from the beginning that desire is not possession. That beauty is not an anchor. That love is not a contract. You might think this made her love less intensely. But in truth, it allowed her to love without fear. And a love without fear is both intoxicating and unsettling. It asks nothing and thus cannot be bribed. In the language of shadow work, she has met her own inner masculine, the logos, the principle of order and reason within her. This union allows her to stand alone without seeking completion in another. It is also what gave her the courage to walk away without needing a villain to justify it. She does not require you to be wrong for her to be done. The ending was enough. She carries this detachment into every arena of her life. You will see it, perhaps, if your paths cross again, in the way she listens without rushing to respond. In the way she moves without announcing her plans. In the way she looks at you as though she is seeing a chapter already closed. It will sting because there will be no malice in it, only freedom. And here lies the seventh and final secret. She knows her worth is not in what she can offer to others, but in what she can withhold for herself. This is the purest expression of temperance, the art of not exhausting the well for every thirsty hand that reaches. She chooses where her energy flows. And once it no longer flows toward you, there is no force on earth that can reverse it. When you finally understand this, it will be too late to reclaim what you lost. And that is by design. For her, closure is not a conversation, it is the unwavering continuation of her life without you in it. She will not circle back. She will not test the waters. She will not reopen the gate, because she knows that every return to what has already been left behind is a theft from the future she is building. By then, she will be far from the version of herself you once knew. She will be sharper, softer, lighter, deeper, a paradox only she can hold. You will think of her in moments of quiet, in victories and in failures, in the eyes of women who almost, but never quite, resemble her, and you will realize that she left you with nothing you can touch, but everything you cannot forget. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.